So before we understand what Abhidhamma is, first, so we should understand the two major divisions of Buddhism nowadays in the world. So the first one is called Theravada Buddhism, or Southern Buddhism, and the second, Mahayana Buddhism, or Northern Buddhism. Now there was one Buddhism originally, but later on there were differences of opinion among the elders, and so different schools of Buddhism appeared in the course of time. And so ultimately, let us say there are only two major divisions of Buddhism nowadays. Now, Theravada Buddhism is believed to be the closest to the original teachings of the Buddha, or as a Theravada Buddhist, I believe that the original teachings of the Buddha are recorded in the scriptures of Theravada Buddhism. And Theravada Buddhism spread towards southern part of Asia, southern countries, and so it is also called Southern Buddhism. It may not be 100% accurate, but people call it Southern Buddhism. So Theravada Buddhism spreads to Sri Lanka, to Burma, to Thailand, to Laos, to Cambodia, and also to Vietnam. And Mahayana Buddhism is a later form of Buddhism, in many ways different from Theravada Buddhism. And this kind of Buddhism spread towards northern countries. I mean, when I say south and north, I mean from the middle of India to the northern countries like Nepal, Tibet, Mongolia, China, Korea, and ultimately to Japan. Since these are northern countries, it is called also Northern Buddhism. And sometimes Theravada Buddhism is called Pali Buddhism. Pali is a language, a sacred language of Theravada Buddhists. And Mahayana Buddhism is called Sanskrit Buddhism because they adopted Sanskrit as a vehicle for their teaching. And in both Theravada and Mahayana, there is Abhidhamma. But what Abhidhamma we are studying, or you are studying with me, is Abhidhamma in Theravada Buddhism. I belong to Theravada Buddhism. I'm a Theravada Buddhist monk, and I know Theravada Abhidhamma, but I'm not so familiar with Abhidhamma in other schools. So the Abhidhamma you are going to study with me is that taught in the Theravada Buddhism. And then we should know how Buddha's teachings were handed down, or recorded and handed down until to this day. Buddha did not write anything down. So he just taught by word of mouth, and his immediate disciples learned his teachings by heart. But 3 months after the death of the Buddha, the surviving disciples of the Buddha, headed by Mahakassapa, held a council, a Buddhist council. And at that council, all the teachings of the Buddha were collected and presented to the council. The council consists of 500 Arahant monks, the immediate disciples of the Buddha. So the teachings were presented and scrutinized, and only when they were satisfied that a particular teaching is the authentic teaching of the Buddha, did they accept as the teaching of the Buddha. And as the symbol of acceptance, they recited that sutta together. That is why The councils are known in Pali as Sangiti or Sangayana. Sangiti or Sangayana means reciting together. So these suttas and other teachings were accepted, sign of acceptance. The Arahants recited these teachings together. So at the first Buddhist council, these teachings of the Buddha, still fresh in the memories of his disciples, were collected and presented, scrutinized, and then, let's say, accepted as the authentic teachings of the Buddha. And that was done in Rajagha in India. Then the second Buddhist council was 100 years after the death of the Buddha. Just before that council, there were elders who had different opinions with regard to some disciplinary rules, and they could not come to agreement with other monks, and so the Sangha was at that time divided, and the other group was called Mahasanghika. The original Sangha, in order to preserve the teachings of the Buddha intact, held a second council, and it was held in, say, Vaisali in India. Actually, that council reaffirmed the teachings that were recorded and accepted at the first Buddhist council. So actually nothing was added or nothing was taken away from the teachings recorded at the first Buddhist council. And from that time on, different schools of Buddhism appeared, and about 200 years after the death of the Buddha, there were as many as, or even more than, 18 schools of Buddhism. And at that time, there were disagreements not only about disciplinary rules, but about other teachings as well. And so, at the third Buddhist council, which was held according to our reckoning, 234 years after the death of the Buddha, all these different opinions were examined, and according to the Theravada tradition, they are found to be false. And so a third council was held at that time. And at that council, one book definitely was added. That is, that book as we have it now. That is Tathagata. And that council was held during the time of King Asoka. You may have heard of King Asoka. He was a very famous king. He was called an Emperor Asoka because he ruled over almost the whole of India. And he was a very exemplary king who gave up war while he was still in victory. He could easily annex the southern tip of India if he wanted to, but he stopped doing that, and he gave up war and followed the path of Dhamma. So it was at during his time that the third Buddhist council was held. And at that council also, the teachings handed down from the first and the second Buddhist council were reaffirmed. And just a little bit of addition there. And then, from that time on until 450 years after the death of the Buddha, these teachings were handed down from teacher to pupil, from generation to generation by word of mouth. So it was the oral tradition until that time. So at that time, it was in Sri Lanka that what is now called the Fourth Buddhist Council was held. During that time, there was a great rebellion. And it was so great that people had to leave their places and go to some other place for shelter and something like that. And so monks found it difficult to survive during that rebellion. So some monks went to southern India. But many monks remained in Sri Lanka. Although they were, it was very difficult for them to even to live, to be alive, they nevertheless protected the teachings of the Buddha in their memory. So after the rebellion, the other monks who went to India came back to Sri Lanka. And so the monks who remained in Sri Lanka said that since they had gone through difficult times, their memory might have failed and they might have made some mistakes in the teachings, and so they compared the teachings. The monks who are left behind in Sri Lanka and the monks who went to southern India and then came back to Sri Lanka. So when they compared the teachings, it is said that there was no difference or no discrepancy. So after that, the monks decided that in the future it would be very difficult for monks to retain all the teachings of the Buddha in their memory, and so they decided to write them down on palm leaves. And so it was in about 450 years after the death of the Buddha in Aluvihara. It is near Kandy. I think some of you may have been to Sri Lanka. So near Kandy there's a town called Aluvihara. So at that place, the Tipitaka were written down on palm leaves. Although it was not called the fourth Buddhist council officially, later generation took it to be the fourth Buddhist council. So we also take it to be the fourth Buddhist council. And then the fifth Buddhist council was held in Mandalay, Burma. It's my native city. I'm not supposed to say I am proud. So it was during the time of King Mindon. He was a very pious king, and he wanted to do something which was not done by any king before him. He wanted to make the teachings of the Buddha last as long as up till the end of the world. So he decided to have the Tipitaka written down on marble slabs. And there were, how many? 729 marble slabs on which all Tipitaka was written down. Those marble slabs were described by a Burmese author as the biggest book in the world. Its pages are 5 inches thick and about 5.5 feet high and about 3.5 feet across, something like that. I have pictures of those marble slabs. I can show you later. So Tipitaka was written down on 729 marble slabs, and each slab was put in a house, a brick house, and they were situated in a pagoda near Mandalay Hill. And it was very lucky that none of these houses was hit by any bomb or any shell, although there was fighting during the Second World War around that place. So we can still see these marble slabs intact in Mandalay. So if you visit Burma and if you visit Mandalay, I think it is a must for you to go and see these marble slabs. So that was done actually to coincide with 2,400 years after the death of the Buddha. And 2,400 monks participated in that council. Later, after that king, there was another king, and that king was captured by the British, and we became a British colony. And then after the Second World War, we gained independence in 1948. And after the independence, both the Sangha and the political leaders of Burma decided to hold another Buddhist council. And they said the sixth Buddhist council would be the most comprehensive because it would include all Theravada countries, and also they invited representatives from Mahayana countries as well. I was involved in that in the proceedings of that Sixth Buddhist Council, but I was too young to be mentioned by name in the records. So the Sixth Buddhist Council was held in Rangoon, and in order to imitate the First Buddhist Council, which was held in a big cave, so the government of Burma built a man-made cave, a big cave. You may have seen that cave in pictures, which could hold 2,500 monks. So at that place in Rangoon, in 1954, the Sixth Buddhist Council was held. And the one outcome of that Sixth Buddhist Council was a well-printed edition, well-edited and well-printed edition of all Tipitaka and its commentaries and sub-commentaries. And nowadays, that edition is believed to be the best edition of the Pali text and commentaries and sub-commentaries. And I will be using those books throughout this class. I will be referring to those books. So the teachings of the Buddha were handed down from generation to generation, and at some intervals the councils were held, and the later councils were actually just the reconfirmation of what the First Buddhist Council they had accepted and recorded. So in this way, the teachings of the Buddha came down to us, say to the present generation, and nowadays it has reached the United States of America. Now, when the Buddha's teachings were recorded at the First Buddhist Council, the elders of that council divided the teachings of the Buddha into different categories. And there are several divisions or several categories, and I want to tell you about only two divisions. The one is division into Nikayas, 5 Nikayas, or collections. So all the teachings of the Buddha were divided into 5 groups, 5 collections. And the first is the collection of long discourses, and then medium-length discourses, and then kindred discourses or miscellaneous discourses, and then gradual discourses, and then minor discourses. So all the Buddha's teachings were divided into 5 Nikayas: long discourses, medium-length discourses, and miscellaneous discourses. And gradual discourses means the discourses containing subject matter gradually increasing. So there are suttas which contain only one subject matter, and there are suttas which contain 2 subject matters, and so on until the 11 subject matters. And the minor discourses, smaller suttas. In Pali, they are called Diga, long discourses; Majjhima, middle-length discourses; Sanyukta, kindred discourses; Anguttara, gradual discourses; and Khuddaka, minor discourses. Again, Buddha's teachings were divided into 3 groups, and they are called 3 Pitakas. The word Pitaka means a receptacle, a vessel, or a basket. Or Pitaka means thing to be learned. And there are 3 Pitakas. So it is usually translated as baskets. So the 3 Pitakas, or 3 baskets, they are Vinaya Pitaka, Sutta or Suttanta Pitaka, and Abhidhamma Pitaka. Now, these divisions are separate, different divisions, Nikayas and Pitakas. Many people misunderstand this because they think that Nikaya division is a subdivision of Pitakas, but that is not so. So you turn to this page. So there the books of the teachings are given, and also which Nikaya or which Pitaka they belong to. So you can look at them and you know which Nikaya and which Pitaka a particular book belongs to. So let's take only the first one. The first one is called Mahavibhanga. This belongs to what Nikaya? Khuddaka Nikaya. And as to Pitaka, it belongs to Vinaya Pitaka. And so on and so on. Now, second page. The asterisks. Niti, Pitakobadis, and Milinda Panya. These three are not mentioned in the Vinaya and Digha Nikaya commentaries as part of the canon. So that is why some people don't include them in the Pali canon. But in Burma, these are also included in the Pali canon. And so when they are rehearsed at the 5th Buddhist Council and 6th Buddhist Council, they are included. And then about Gathawatu, and this book, as we have it today, was added at the 3rd Buddhist Council. And you may see, read Expositor. And then there is a Pali verse, and that is from Vinaya commentary and Abhidhamma commentary. And the meaning is given below. The rest of the word of the Buddha, excluding these 4 Nikayas, such as Digha, that means Digha, Majjhima, Sanyutta, Anguttara. Excluding these 4, the rest of the word of the Buddha should be understood as belonging to Khuddaka Nikaya. So it is strange that the whole of Vinaya Pitaka and the whole of Abhidhamma Pitaka belong to Khuddaka Nikaya. Khuddaka means minor teachings or minor discourses. So Abhidhamma is not minor and Vinaya is not minor, but both of them are included in Khuddaka Nikaya. The division into Nikayas and division into Pitakas are 2 different divisions. Not that Nikaya division is a subdivision of Suttanta Pitaka. Many people think that way. So the Abhidhamma we are going to study belongs to, as to Nikaya, Khuddaka Nikaya, and as to Pitaka, the Abhidhamma Pitaka.